Hi, my name's Mike, and I'm a guide at Hearst Castle. And today I'd like to talk to you about the original elevator at Hearst Castle. You know, as a guest at Hearst Castle on tours, you can often see the elevator through the door on the upstairs suites tour, or maybe if you're on the grand rooms tour, you might peek through this doorway right here if you're a guest and look at the elevator doors. But most of the guests don't get a lot of information about the elevator. Today, I'd like to take you on a tour of it. Now, Mr. Hearst, William Randolph Hearst that is, was a media mogul, and he worked with his architect, Julia Morgan, for 28 years on this project. They originally started construction here on the entire project in 1920. That would have been 100 years ago this year. And they started construction of Casa Grande, that's the house we're in right now, the big house, in 1922, with the idea of it being a two-story house with large social rooms inside. But Mr. Hearst had a very active imagination, and he changed his mind a lot. In fact, Julia Morgan, his architect, once said that he suffered from a condition that she called changeableness of mind. And he was always changing his mind about things. So he decided to change his original two-story idea on the house to a three-story, which involved adding height to the towers and creating a fourth story as well. He wanted to live on the third floor and take advantage of the views from this hill. So his original idea for the third floor would be to include elevators. The first idea was an elevator in each of the the north and the south corners of the house and the stairways. But then he changed his mind again, and he said, I'm going to order one elevator and one only, and we're going to put it in the northwest corner of the house. And that's where we're standing right now, and this is where the elevator was installed. And a one-passenger elevator was ordered in 1927. Let's take a look. In November of 1927, a single-passenger elevator was ordered from the Otis Elevator Company. Now, it was placed in service about October of 1928. Now, Otis Elevator has been around for a long time. Most people who have ever ridden in an elevator have ridden in an Otis elevator at one time. Elijah Otis started his company in 1853. You know, elevators have been around already, but he developed this safety mechanism that became very popular, very useful in elevators. Within 3 years, he had installed 40 freight elevators on the East Coast. And within a few years after that, he had offices all over the world. Matter of fact, the Eiffel Tower is serviced with an Otis elevator. The Empire State Building has Otis elevators in it. This elevator, considered a single passenger elevator, can carry 1,500 pounds of weight. It's permitted for that much. But it also is permitted for 10 people. You think you could get 10 people in this elevator? I don't think so. 1,500 pounds, 10 150-pound humans in this elevator. Anyway, you know the thing about this elevator, it's carried a lot of interesting people over the years. Politicians like Winston Churchill, like Calvin Coolidge, or scientists like Edmund Hubble. Hollywood celebrities of the day like Charlie Chaplin, like Carole Lombard, Clark Gable, Jimmy Stewart, David Niven, and even today, Hollywood celebrities can ride in this. Not too long ago, there was a guide here at Hearst Castle who had the opportunity to give Leonardo DiCaprio a private tour. And on that tour, they get to ride in this elevator. So Leonardo's been in this elevator. Let's take a ride. So here's the button to the second floor. That's where we're going right now. So I'd like you to notice the paneling in this elevator. It is quite elaborate. And we're going to go to the second floor and I'll show you the inspiration for the paneling in this elevator. So this library on the second floor, the library lobby, is the inspiration really for the wood paneling in the elevator. And what we have here, much of it is 15th century Italian choir stalls that were adapted by Mr. Hearst craftsmen Jules Suppo and Fred Jordan to line this lobby with paneling. They didn't have enough of it though, as it turns out. And this is very similar to what they would do all over this estate. If they didn't have enough of the antique elements that Mr. Hearst would purchase, then they would make more. So what we have here is a combination of 15th century antique elements and new wood that was created by Mr. Suppo and Mr. Jordan for this project. Now this is the top of the house, the original house, the second floor, right? But Mr. Hearst wanted to add a third floor for him to live in. And in order to do that, they had to change the stairway over here to add the elevator shaft. Let's see some of the consequences that occurred because of that decision. Now this elevator, almost 92 years old, still in service today. The Hearst Castle staff still use it if they're carrying things up and down. That's a pretty good recommendation for Otis elevators, don't you think? We're going to take a ride up to the third floor, where Mr. Hearst began living about 1928. Let's take a ride up to the end of the line for this elevator, the third floor, the Gothic suite. So the third floor is where William Randolph Hearst began living about 1928. When he moved in, or when he was thinking about this third floor suite, he also wanted to add bells to his towers. But the towers he didn't think were quite tall enough. He wanted Julia Morgan, his architect, to make them taller, more prominent. And when she did that, that created a space for another bedroom called the Celestial Suite on the fourth floor. But you can't get there from the elevator. This elevator only goes up to the third floor, so you have to take the stairs to go up to the fourth floor. And you'll see that one of the unintended consequences of putting this elevator in an existing stairway is that the stairs become very narrow when we get to the top. Let's take a look. So where I'm standing right now is just outside the exit from the Celestial Suite, that is the fourth floor of Casa Grande. And this is how you would access coming up or coming down. And notice these stairs, how narrow it is right here. Actually, at this point, this space is about 20 3/4 inches, this width. And it's really that narrow because of this window right here. This window sticks out of the wall about 10 inches. This was originally here and it wasn't taken out. They just kind of made this stairway fit. It sticks out of the wall about 25 centimeters, creating a space that's about 20 3/4 inches. That's about 52 centimeters. Normally today, if you were building a stairway like that, a minimum size or width would have to be 36 inches. That's about 1 meter for a space like this. Julia Morgan told her client, William Randolph Hearst, that he better watch his weight as he's coming down because it is so narrow right here. Another one of the, the consequences, whether unintended or not, of building an elevator in an existing steel reinforced concrete shaft is demolition. Now, this is steel reinforced concrete. You can see the rebar here and there. This is concrete. This is at least 18 inches thick. How would you like to be the workman whose boss came to you and said, you know that concrete that you poured about a year or so ago? Well, we need to break all that out so that we can build an elevator shaft for Mr. Hearst. What would you think? So our last trip today is going to be going down to the basement. It's just outside the wine cellar. Now the thing about this elevator, Otis elevator is very reliable. However, apparently this elevator has a tendency to get stuck occasionally. Now, I've never been stuck in this elevator. I don't know anybody that's been stuck in this elevator, although I was told if you're going to ride in the elevator, take some water with you because it gets stuck. As I said, I don't know that anybody that's been stuck in this elevator, but there was a story told by Grace Coolidge, that's Calvin Coolidge's wife. When Calvin Coolidge and his wife Grace were here in 1930 as guests of William Randolph Hearst, well, one of the days she was here, she decided to take the elevator down for lunch. Well, it got stuck from the second floor, between the first floor and second floor, she was stuck. And she sat there and waited for a little bit, nothing happened. She did hear some workers working outside, so she started yelling. Nothing happened. Nobody came. Finally, she started yodeling. Now, she just had been learning how to yodel, and she thought, well, I'll try that. And so she actually impressed herself with her yodeling. And this alerted one of the workmen, heard her yodeling, and came to her rescue. You know, the thing about that story is Grace Coolidge was not so upset about being stuck in the elevator for half an hour as the fact that her husband, Calvin Coolidge, never missed her. So right now, we're in the basement of Hearst Castle, right outside the wine cellar. This is the door to the wine cellar. It's a safe door, by the way. Mr. Hearst asked one of his construction superintendents, Camille Rossi, to obtain and install safe doors at his wine cellar. You know, much of the time that he was entertaining here, it was Prohibition. Between 1920 and 1933 was Prohibition. So he was serving wine back in those days. So he had a wine cellar. And this is the place where the motors for the elevator exist. They live in here. All the controls are in this room as well. Now there's a story told by an electrician that used to work here. His name was Byron Hanchett. Byron Hanchett worked here between 1944 and 1946, and he was a very interesting man. Made like journal entries of his experiences here. Wrote a book from those journal entries called In and Around the Castle by Byron Hanchett. Anyway, one of those stories he told about a day when his boss came to him and said, I need some help with the elevator. Something wrong. So he thought that was kind of exciting. He came over here and his boss told him, I need you to push this relay. This relay has gone out. And Mr. Hanchett said, well, why don't you get another one? He said, well, I just did. You're it. There were people working in the library studying the Greek vases up there, and they needed to go up down in the elevator. So Mr. Hanchett's job was to push the relay in with his finger every time they pushed the button on the elevator controls. So his boss was nice enough to bring him lunch, cut up in little bite-sized pieces so he could eat with one hand and push the relay with the other. He said it was a long day. Folks, thanks so much for joining me on this tour of the original elevator at Hearst Castle. This Otis elevator has been in service for almost 92 years. Pretty good endorsement for the Otis Elevator Company, don't you think?